Good evening, everyone. We have a quorum, correct? So, this is the Economic Development Committee. Welcome, everybody. First item on our agenda this evening is approval of the minutes of September 25. So may I have a motion? All right. Any discussion or changes to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. May I help you? No, you. Paul.
I'm waiting for, I'm sorry, I'm waiting for the first agenda item.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. I was going to talk about that a little bit. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is, all right, so do you want to present it?
There is a speaker signed up. I don't know if you want to let.
Oh, okay, so where's the speaker
Right,
list?
I handed
Just right.
the
Oh,
public
Here it
speak.
is, right here. All right, sign-in sheet, where's DeKel? I don't, oh, there
She
you
is.
are, DeKel, I'm sorry. I swear, I can't see that far away anymore. Hi, DeKel Fonda from
everybody.
Dempster Dodge Business District. Well, we
Yes.
might as well start with speakers, go ahead.
Okay, so yes, I'm representing the Dempster Dodge Business District and the Asbury Dodge Neighborhood Association. And we only found out that you were going to be discussing this tonight, so that's why I'm representing everybody. There are lots of other folks that would be here with me. We want to support the request by our business neighbors who are hoping to open a restaurant in the old Kurt's Cafe that's been empty now for many, many months.
Mm-hmm.
And we met with them, the business district folks met with them when they first presented the idea. Everyone was very excited, and the neighborhood has continually been asking me, when are they opening? So we're very happy that they are planning to open. And my understanding is there's some unexpected expenses that have come up in the process, so they're coming to you for some help. So I want to add, though, that, and Peter and I talked about this today, there was a shooting on that block on Friday night at the barbershop. And I do understand that it was random. However, when Kurtz was there, I'm sorry?
Where was it?
At the barbershop on Dempster.
In the barbershop?
Well, into the barbershop, into the windows.
It was shots fired.
Shots fired,
Yeah,
yeah.
nobody was hit.
Nobody
right?
was
Yeah,
hit, fortunately.
yeah, horrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you saying it was random?
I think there were three shots.
Right. So my
Three
understanding
shots.
is it was a random shooting. It wasn't targeted at the barbershop, but yeah, it's a young man that's not from Evanston. Peter can probably fill you in. The police can fill you in. But my point is, when Kurtz was there for all those years, that was an active block. I mean, Hartwood is across the street. There are hundreds of people going into Hartwood all the time. But with the cafe, it was a busy block. And so the fact that that particular location's been empty now, it's got paper on the windows, you can see it's empty, is not good for our business district or for the neighborhood. So I just want to add that. I think it's a factor. Don't know if that's why it happened, but it might not have happened had there been activity, because people coming into a restaurant shows that people are living there and working there and active. So I would urge you to support the request from our business neighbors, who are going to speak to you, I'm sure, about it, and help them in any way that you can, because it will help the neighborhood and the business district.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the first item on our agenda is, I'm not sure I'm going to kill this or not, but Zentili's request for financial assistance. They're asking for tax increment financing funds from the West Evanston TIF in the amount of $24,200, based on the fact that when they started to have the professionals in there with equipment, they found that the floor, evidently it appeared to be rotting from bad maintenance, whatever. And the new equipment would not, the floor would not support the new equipment. And I must say that several of us up here at the dais will never refer to that property as being the former Kurt's Cafe because we are former employees of that building. And that building is the former Neighbors at Work, just so you know. Well, and what's-his-face here was the former, the former so-called executive director. And I was his underling,
And our chair was the
Underling.
so-called housing council.
director.
Oh, under me.
And this banter could go on all night long, but we won't. This is all about Marcus. Do you want to come up here and talk to us a little bit about the concept? Because there's not much about that here, and I think we'd love to hear about it. And I'd like to hear some real serious talk about your timing, because this has been like. DeKel said this has been empty way too long since you signed your lease.
Yeah, so we've been paying rent, so we want to be,
Introduce yourself for the record.
my name is Marcos Rivera, and
And
my partner, Alfonso.
Alfonso Nieves.
hi.
So, our initial timeframe was to be open by November 1st. So we thought we were just going to go in there, paint some walls, change out some bathroom fixtures or whatnot. And the biggest thing was put in the kitchen. So we started buying everything that we needed, and then we had a professional go in there to see what it was going to be to install everything. And when he went in there, he saw the floors were slanting in, and he stepped on the floors, and he said that there would be no way we'd be able to put the equipment because of the weight would go right through the floor. And then that was in the kitchen area. In their kind of like bar area, they had an espresso machine kind of in the middle of the area, which was connected to plumbing. It was water, and that was not done correctly, so it had been leaking for God knows how long, and that rotted away all those floors as well. So we tried speaking to the landlord, since it is his building, and he would be the one who would actually benefit. Obviously, we would with the stable floor, but it's his building, and he said he's not in a position right now to invest any money into the building, and hence that's why he's not giving us any. We said, okay, well maybe if we can work something out, or rent or something. And he said, no, the bank's not waiting for
Mortgage payment.
right. He's like, you've got to pay rent. So we've been paying rent and trying to figure out what our next step is, and that kind of put us back. We budgeted. Obviously, when you're going into a project, you budget for unexpected circumstances, but nobody's, we didn't expect the whole flooring to kind of be in that condition, so that's put us back. As far as concept is concerned, we are going to be casual, kind of a street food, street Mexican food, so you're looking at tacos and, tlacoyos, and it's stuff you don't really hear you're usually used to burritos or enchiladas, so it's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be more traditional street food. We do have a liquor license, so we will have liquor as well. Since my partner's an artist and he's been involved in a lot of projects here in Evanston, he has strong ties to the community. We're also going to be incorporating art with it, and one of his major plans is to have different art projects with the different schools and the youth in the neighborhood. He's worked with at-risk youth throughout the city. He's also traveled throughout the country and done different projects, so that's going to be a big part of what we're doing, as well as being very community focused. That's kind of what our deal is. He's grassroots, community artist, and we want to incorporate that along with our food and then neighborhood. And I know that you mentioned about the shooting and the area that doesn't That's not something that's going to, deter us, or on the contrary, we hope to help,
Yeah.
what we can there and bring it up. And for me personally, when I opened Las Palmas in Wicker Park before it was, where it's at now, there were shootings there, and it was a bad neighborhood. But with the help of the community and the businesses, where Wicker Park's at now, it's one of the most sought after, and I'm sure with the help of the community, like we've seen that they're very involved, and we have Heartwood across the street that we can build that up as well, and we plan on being there for a while and helping out.
So what is your timing?
So if we can get these floors figured out, we have everything else ready to go. I would say a month and a half tops. We already have the contractor lined up, and as soon as we can get everything ready, it's just a matter of getting the permits and full speed ahead.
'Cause pretty soon it's going to be warm enough for people to be out walking past there without fearing they're going to slip and fall on the ice.
Right.
So you'll have a lot of pedestrian traffic.
Yeah, and one of the plans, we were looking to get the windows to open up in the front, to do a little, patio up in front, so people can see when they're driving by as well.
All righty. All right. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mark?
Go ahead, and I'll make a comment when you're front. Just really quick, first I want to thank Kel for coming out on short notice. I think, our traditional path when we look to do public funding, we try to get the businesses in front of the ward, and they have come out, and I think it's pretty admirable, the steps that you took, just the investment in that facility, because I think we've had Pick a Cup, Kurt's Cake. There have been like 2 or 3 businesses that have taken attempt to work out of that space, but they were limited because there wasn't the proper kitchen in there to really get a full-blown restaurant. So I think that's great. And I think your investment in terms of building the community is spot on. I mean, we have a large Spanish-speaking community all along Dodge, and I think that your business will be not only the space that they need, but also like an ambassador in bringing additional people there. So I'm really, really excited. I'm looking forward to supporting it. I mean, you will definitely contribute to that neighborhood. I want to personally thank Paulina for all your help, because you've kept me updated with everything. Paul, for bringing it to the table. So this is the type of mix, just for those at home that can't see it, they're investing 75%, and the TIF fund makes up the other 25%, which is a nice, healthy balance that we're used to seeing in front of this committee. So thank you. Stay connected to our staff, and if there's anything that I can personally do, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, I don't know who was first. Go ahead, Melissa. Oh, you're, okay, Melissa, and then. Oh, you don't? Okay, I can't tell who's, all right, go ahead.
All right, I'll hop in. I'm sorry. I'm really excited about this project. I think Libertad is, I don't think you mentioned that you're the owner and operator of Libertad in downtown Skokie. And I think a lot of folks in Evanston see that as a jewel in downtown Skokie and travel to Skokie specifically to come to Libertad. So when I heard of, the proposed investment here in Evanston, I was really excited. I'm walking distance from this location, and I think that people will be really excited to see some additional options come to Dempster and Dodge beyond sort of the fast food and other options that are offered there. So I think it's an exciting project.
Thank you.
Mr. Powell?
I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad you just said that. I was going to ask you, have you ever owned, a restaurant?
Oh, yeah, they're seasoned business owners.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm finding that out. Okay. Let me ask you this. How much is your rent over there?
It's 2,500.
2,500? Okay. And is that the bottom and the top floor of the whole building?
It's just the bottom floor.
Bottom
Mhm.
floor. What's the name of your landlord?
Nelu, I can't pronounce his last name. Still something.
Are both of you living in Evanston?
No, I'm down the street in Skokie. He go ahead.
I used to live in Evanston for 10 years, but I moved to Pilsen, and now if I'm hopefully and everything is gonna go well, I'm planning to come back to Evanston because my child lives here and still a block away from here.
Yeah, Pilsen's pretty nice, so.
Yeah, but it's also being gentrified and it's really expensive.
Well, come to Evanston.
Yeah, I mean it's about the same, but
Yeah.
it used to be really cheap over there.
Yeah. So you'll be managing the place, is that correct?
I mean, both of us, but I'm also, my other passion for, besides art, is cooking.
Good.
So I have a long tradition of cooking. That's how I met Marcos, working in his kitchen at Las Palmas. And Las Palmas restaurant
Yeah,
in
they
Chicago.
own Las Palmas. His father started Las Palmas.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be cooking. I'm gonna be cooking and also making some outreach in the community with kids and young people.
And arts.
And actually, we already have lined up our first project at Dewey Elementary. Actually, I'm coming from there today because I already started, but I don't want to launch the project until March 11th. Yeah.
And don't forget, you promised to do
Go to
art,
the
a
8th
mural in the 8th Ward. And
Yes.
I've already got him signed up.
How long is your lease for?
So we have a 5-year with another option for another 5 years, so 10.
That guy is a crook.
Pass the sniff test?
Okay, the kids that, or the people that you want to hire. Now, this is important to me. Will be kids from us.
Yes. Yes.
Is that a commitment?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a commitment.
That's a commitment. I work already here on a project with Ruby Simmons and the mural on Foster Street that is called You're Brilliant. I don't know if you have seen it in the 5th Ward. When I got there at the very beginning, the neighbors started yelling at me because the color purple, like, but after what they saw, how the community started gathering and how all the children from the block came to help. Next day, I have tamales, I have coffee every day from the community, and we got to Fleetwood. We also got the different schools around the neighborhood, and after we were done, it was a very community-based project. We did some program like breaking tiles, like writing on the back stereotypes and things that we want to break down or like that comes from generations and stuff like that. And after that, you see all the tiles put in a nice way and people can relate to that as a community builder and a way to heal the community. And that's what I want to focus on, that neighborhood, that people that are involved in the mural making, they have an art piece, like a clay piece on the wall. So they become a part of the whole installation and have like kind of the artist right, like co-making or co-workers or, yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
That's a question that I need.
All right.
So
Thank
I
you.
just wanna make sure these kids from the neighborhood.
Yes.
I mean, from not the neighborhood, but from the community.
Yeah, from the Evanston, we want to go around.
So, speaking of which, is there, just because coming from where in Skokie, I found it difficult trying to find, help. Do you have, would you be able to kind of stir us on where?
I don't have to, let me tell you something. This community here is a land of milk and honey.
Mhm.
You got an agency called Evanston Youth Job Center.
Mhm.
You got right here with the city of Evanston, you got that, what's the name of the program? Mayor's
Okay.
Summer and-
Kurt's Cafe.
Listen, you will have, they got so many programs for these kids.
So just, I can just contact,
You run my website,
okay,
okay? But, yeah.
Okay.
You won't have a problem with that.
I'll make
Perfect.
sure to get them connected.
okay,
It's just making sure they come to work,
yeah,
okay?
all right.
That's what I do for living, you know, like I go around like working with youth, and I have been doing it already for 20 years, and this summer it's gonna be 20 years, and I go to Englewood, to West Side,
Wait a minute.
Pilsen.
Focus in.
You
Hold on,
got
player.
you got a different breed here.
Hold on, player.
Yeah.
Okay, you got a different breed here, so you got a lot to learn here. I mean, it's you know, the West Side and those kids, I know them. They're hungry. They want it.
Yeah.
These kids here, they're spoiled. But I'm gonna leave it at that, and I think you'll be fine. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Good luck. Let's get going.
That is true.
All right. So could I have a motion here?
So moved.
Okay, second. All right, any further discussion? We should- all right, all those in favor of recommending expending $24,200 of tax increment financing to assist with the opening of this restaurant at 1813 Dempster Street, the former Neighbors at Work building, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This fabulous project. I just can't wait, and I couldn't agree more that it needs to get going quickly. It's going to be really exciting. So, all right, moving on to the next item is A4, 4A, Northwest Evanston TIF study. Do you want to make an introduction of this, Paul? Anybody
Thank-
here from that neighborhood or the Alderman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me
Yeah.
get the image draft. So, for the record, I'm Paul Zalmazek. I'm the Economic Development Manager for the City of Evanston. My colleague Katie Bowden and I had met with Alderman Suffredin to discuss development opportunities in Northwest Evanston, specifically the intersection, I should say, because it's a three-way corner of Grosse Pointe, Central, and Crawford. That specific intersection is kind of, despite the fact that much of Evanston has experienced significant growth over the last 8 years while I've been here and a couple years before that, the Northwest, that commercial corridor has been very quiet. And we think that, that by implementing a TIF district, that might inspire development to occur at the corner. We have two owners, two primary owners. Sarkis controls the site that was once planned to be Nick's Organics. It was a gas station.
So did they sell that back then? Because they own that, right? The
Right. There was an auction, and the Sarkis ownership purchased it.
Got it, thank
as,
you.
As I understand. And then across the street, the property that holds the largest corner, large parking lot is CVS. Both of those sites had been planned in 2007 to, in a community plan, to have redevelopment that could include mixed use with upper story, some kind of mixed use living, whether it be senior housing or mixed affordable. And then we're suggesting to take a look at a broader study area that includes Lovelace Park to address some of the infrastructure needs there. There's a site that used to be a greenhouse. The ownership of that property, brother and sister duo, unfortunately passed away very close to one another. And so that property is in some kind of legal.
Where is that?
I don't know the address, but it's right on the border of Wilmette. It's right
Is it
across.
on Green Bay Road?
I always call it It's Grosse Pointe.
Oh, Grosse Pointe.
Right, and it's set back, and it's kind of sunken. So Bob's Tree
Oh,
Farm, I
okay,
think,
okay,
was the
that's
name of it. And
okay.
So that has potential to be townhouse or single family. So there's just, we need, if we're actively studying it, we think we can inspire the market. And then we also are suggesting maybe including Bent Park. There is a project that Schemmerhorn had started. I don't know the status of that project. And then if we go down further south, closer to the border of Skokie and Old Orchard, there's some commercial development there. So this doesn't necessarily mean that this is what the TIF would look like at the end of the day if it were to be implemented. It's a study area that would eventually will determine if it meets all the standards of the state statute, and then we would proceed on a second request to actually implement the TIF. So that's how I would introduce it to this committee for discussion.
I looked at this for quite a while, and first of all, I know we have to do the study in order to know what the baseline is, in order to know what we can generate and increment, but I just be surprised if it meets whatever the standard should be. It just doesn't look. I don't know. What anybody else? I can't tell whose light that's up.
That's
Peter,
mine,
is that
yeah.
you? Okay.
So I had similar questions, and I didn't get to flush through all this in the packet. So I guess it would have been nice if Alderman Sufferman was here just to give us a little bit more background and context, but the reason why, and you kind of summed that up. I'm curious to know if there have been any communications with the neighbor at a ward meeting. I'd love to know what they think, number one, and then the impact to taking those properties off, just, the impact to the school district if we didn't do anything, right? Just given the fact that everybody's property taxes are going up right now. So what exactly do you ask us? I mean, are we just
Right,
are we
so-
putting this on file? What are
No, so we need direction before we go out and do an RFP for a consultant to do a feasibility study to answer the questions that Alderman Rainey's kind of alluding to. Does it qualify?
Yeah.
I think it probably does as a conservation area, TIF. It really hasn't kept up pace with, I'm assuming it hasn't, the commercial properties haven't kept up pace with the rest of the city in terms of EAV growth. There's infrastructure needs at the parks. The intersection itself is questionable in terms of, I don't want to suggest that Northwest Evanston is blighted. I don't want to say
no,
that.
and I know
I
you're
was
not.
I was
And I'm not
waiting
saying
for that.
I'm not saying that.
No, I'm
I'm
not
saying there are
totally-
some opportunities. This is Evanston, and if we can think of a way to create a small village kind of business district for Northwest Evanston that's walkable, that it's generating more sales tax. CVS is the only thing going over there. I don't know if you've been in that store, but it is. I don't know how else to say it. It's in rough shape, in my opinion. It doesn't kind of meet standards that we see elsewhere in the community. Kind of similar to the Jewel on Chicago Avenue in terms of quality.
Thank you. Can I ask a question, Ann?
Just jump in, yeah.
Right. So, Paul, is this going to be problematic? Because I know there's the corner of Central and Crawford has that Starbucks little plaza, and then there's a fair amount of residential in this, too. The triangular-shaped building, north of Harrison.
Are you referring to the condominium development here?
Yes, that's what I meant, yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, that's not that, well, I guess that's probably 20 years old, but is that going to be problematic in terms of having a couple of isolated, that Starbucks is very busy, and I don't know what the values are in that condo area, but you're right, the animal hospital is closed, right?
Right.
And
The southern intersection
is
that I'm
definitely looking tired and empty and needing some life. Soapy's is there, which is, I know, doing probably very well, because the owner of that is a superb marketer. But so I think it would be worth looking at to see what it comes back as. Certainly there are some opportunities there. It's a very dense neighborhood. And
I would like to know what percentage is parks and off the tax rolls in this, in the identified area. It looks like a big percentage.
Yeah, from a land area perspective,
Yeah.
it looks like it's more than 50%. So you know, like a broader strategy would be determining how we want to invest the TIF dollars and identify projects within the parks. You know, there's, I did speak with Public Works about some of the needs at Lovelace. I don't recall specifically at the moment what they were, but there were several. Beyond the idea of putting down turf grass, we're not talking about that. We're talking about actual infrastructure needs. You know, and again, this is a broader study area. If we don't like the idea of public parks being in it, or the condominium development, there's a large parking lot that's attached as a pin. Perhaps there's a way to address that separately from the condominiums. You know, you could draw the boundaries a little different, so it's not including it. It's really just kind of a broad, I could have drawn a square around the whole area and said, hey, we're not going to look at single-family housing, just the corridor.
Yeah.
And would you just estimate the cost? What do you think after we send out
Well,
the RFP? How does that
sure.
work? And how do you get to a magic number, I guess
Okay.
my question.
Sure. So for comparison purposes, the Howard Ridge TIF expansion was somewhere in the range of 30 grand. That was an actual implementation of that was a relatively simple, you know, there was a lot of process, but
Simple, yeah.
so if we're just looking at a study, it might be in the range of like $5,000, right? But you know, we're bringing it forward because this is a policy discussion. Is that going to be an issue?
What do you mean $5,000 for this?
To do a feasibility study, just to run the numbers, to look at, does it meet the standards? But we have to do an RFP. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to cost, but a feasibility study to determine, does it meet the state standards? Are there parcels that we shouldn't include? Are there parcels we're missing? That kind of thing.
Would Rishlicki do the study? Who would do the study?
Depending on,
$5,000?
yeah, we'd have to.
Well, I guess we could get estimates to
Right.
see what the study would
So I want to be clear. I'm not seeking permission to do a contract. I'm trying to make sure that we have a discussion about the policy and the idea behind a TIF in Northwest Evanston. From that point, we'll follow purchasing guidelines. A $5,000 study is something that we can do without, you know, city council approval. You know, that's a staff administrative kind of line item, but it's really more about, do we want to use city resources to study this?
My
If I
only
can-
comment about this is this would be a questionable TIF in my mind, given the TIFs that we've done in the past. All right, that's enough said. I can't tell, is this Peter? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Lisa.
sorry.
I'll jump in. I just had a couple questions. I'd be shocked, I could be wrong, that if you can get this study done for $5,000.
Challenge.
Ditto.
Do it.
I think it's interesting to include the parks. You know, I was a part of the park study when I was on the consulting side, and certainly a lot of the, you know, the deficiencies at those parks have been identified, and I think it might be of interest to the area residents to see that as part of this, they might be able to see some needed improvements at those parks, so I think that's interesting. I would say that if we're going to go out to RFP and ask firms to submit bids and put work into it, I would hope that as a committee that we would be seriously considering them moving forward with that work. Sitting on the other side of the of that desk, of that equation, I think you don't want to be seen as going out for bid and not be willing to seriously pursue that as a course of action. So I would just want to make sure that we're not just sort of getting numbers that we're considering, but something that, you know, that we would be seriously interested in pursuing.
Okay.
Go ahead, just.
Has there been discussion with the merchants in the area and the property owners by the ward alderman?
No, I have not been involved in conversations. Perhaps he's had conversations.
Again, so we got a lot of stuff going on in that area. They're just getting ready to do an SSA. I think for $5,000, it's worth knowing the answers, but that would be my suggestion to Alderman Suffolk. And hopefully he's already done that, but let's make sure we check that box so that our committee isn't getting, I don't want to receive blame from anyone without having that conversation
Okay.
first. And that seems like a natural course if he understands that sounds like in support of at least getting a little bit more information to make a rational decision.
Okay, that's clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
let's have a motion. I'll entertain a motion regarding just an estimate of what this would cost to do a full-fledged TIF analysis here.
So moved.
Okay. Well,
Why is
what
that
are you
second?
saying?
So
From,
I'm moving
within a
the-
range?
I think if we cap it at $5,000, that's a very decent value.
I think that's a mistake.
Okay.
To
Can I
get
make a
some
suggestion?
estimates.
Can I suggest that we move to authorize staff to go out for RFP and then, I don't know what the practice is. Do you guys get 3 bids?
Sure. So our purchasing guidelines require that we get 3 bids. And we don't need to come to city council for bids that are going to be under, I don't know if it's 20.
Well, we
it's
would get
20,000.
estimates, not
minute.
bids, on something this cheap. We would get estimates.
So Mr. Powell, so for projects or, we don't need city council approval if it's under $20,000. Okay. Sometimes we do. Maybe it's been bumped to 25.
Well, lately
So-
we do, actually.
So, but sometimes we do because we just want to be transparent. In a case like this, okay, I'm stressing that we're going to take a quick look at it, see if it fits the guidelines. Maybe I am operating in, $1990 with my low estimate. But I think we can get a pretty quick analysis to see if it fits the guidelines before we launch into a full-fledged, right? So,
So, I mean, the $5,000, that's just like off the top of your head. Is that what you're?
I don't want to put my team on the spot, but I think we asked, okay, so for the audience at home, I'll tell you. So the consultant that tends to do most of our TIF analyses, TIF districts, and he just finished the Howard Ridge TIF expansion. He responded to a quick request, like, "Hey, I think I could do that probably for $3,500." Like, if that's what you said.
Yeah, he said 35 to 5,000.
Okay, so
All right, all those in favor of seeking estimates for determining whether or not this area outlined or something similar would qualify for tax increment financing district, say aye. Any opposed? That would be,
I'm just trying to understand something. What he's saying, what I'm understanding him saying is that this guy that gave him the numbers, he has done TIFs, majority of the TIFs in Evanston,
all of them.
all of them. So why are we going out for RFP?
Well,
If all y'all been set, I'm just questioning.
Maybe we're not- maybe
I mean,
we're
you
not.
know, I'm just trying to
That's-
understand, what is all this?
Public
That's-
policy.
That's not what the motion said, that we're just going to get an estimate on whether or not this could possibly qualify for it.
Oh, as far as this, okay. I guess I'm getting this.
Isn't that what we said?
So
Yes.
what I will literally do, if this committee is okay with the policy and it looks like you're putting kind of a cap on it, I will send it, with Katie's help, we'll send an email to I think there are 3 TIF consultants now, and say, this is what we want to do. They're all going to respond. Bob Ryschlicki will probably come in at a really low rate because he tends to do that. And we would move forward with his study, and then I would come back to committee and say, this is what they found. Are we comfortable moving forward with this? Okay, that's how that would work. We might, maybe this isn't going to happen, Mr. Powell, but maybe there's some aggressive consultant out there that'll do it for $1,000. I doubt it, but, okay.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, this is just how government work. I would just tell you to just, if this guy's been doing all our work, it's like working on, just go ahead and get in, let's get moving.
Yeah.
But it's,
Yeah.
okay.
Love the way you think.
All right.
I love the way you think.
So would you like to be counted as a yes on that?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take the vote over. All those in favor of securing an estimate on whether or not this layout here for the proposed area study for Evanston, Northwest Evanston TIF study is a possible tax increment financing district, say yes.
Aye.
Yes. Any opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, one
And
opposed.
for my reasons.
Okay, and for his reasons.
You're
All right,
taking up a lot of staff time.
all right. Moving right along, and you'll come back to us. This always has to come back to us. TIFs always have to come back to economic development, so we'll see what happens. All right, next is 4B, which is a recommendation, I think it's just a discussion, I hope, from Alderman Fleming for retail co-working incubator. I don't know if everybody read this, very interesting. I also read right after this about the extraordinary number of vacant spaces we have in Evanston. I was absolutely shocked. I hear people coming up to the microphone when they're, criticizing city government, and they say about the vacant spaces, and it seems to be true. Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Zelmazak.
Would the
Or
committee like a
members-
very brief presentation, or are we?
Sure.
So, just in summary, this academic development staff brought this idea several years ago. We had the thought we're going to put it in the 1800 Maple Garage space. We got the cannabis dispensary instead, and so we lost steam, and we weren't able to commit a space without renting a space. Right? We controlled that space before. We thought if we could have a retail incubator set up in there, there'd be low cost. I think it was in November, Alderman Fleming suggested that we pursue the idea again. She didn't realize that we had already done that. And I think what was motivating her was the closure of a boutique on Main Street that was a beautiful shop, really well done. It's iBoutique Closet, I believe was the name of it. It was somebody, I think, that went through the Sunshine program and things like that. She just couldn't afford the rent. Rents are really high, and it's one of the reasons that there is a kind of a slightly increasing retail vacancy rate in Evanston at the moment, and it's the same way everywhere in the country. We are proposing that we kind of re-energize this idea. And during this process, I was working with my colleague in the Downtown Evanston organization, Annie Coakley, to build kind of a curriculum for all of Evanston retail. She's focused on downtown Evanston. And there's a firm called 37 Oaks that does a retail university that helps retailers with setting up online businesses, storefront displays, merchandising and the like. And then on top of it, she, for a fee, runs retail incubators in the suburbs and had done one in the city of Chicago at Navy Pier for Christmas. So I'd like the opportunity to explore a potential relationship with 37 Oaks. She would come back with her own presentation in February or March if the committee agrees that we should be pursuing retail incubation.
Well, who are we going to be reaching out to that would be entering this space? Are we going to cannibalize people who are currently scraping by and actually paying their rent? Are we going to empty out stores that
that's
are
a great
currently
question.
occupied?
Right. Don't have that policy figured out yet. I think when we started this years ago, Alderman Holmes talked about all of the kind of home-based craft businesses that would pop up at church bazaars, right? That was her, we got to get them in the shops, she would say. So that was kind of how we started. And we know, and we're going to have a better sense of it when we have our business registration list completed,
Yeah, I was thinking.
Right, so that's going to help us understand who those home-based businesses are, and we'll see. I honestly, I can't tell you at this time what the market would be or how it would the spaces would fill. I'm really at this point trying to learn if the committee would like to pursue the idea, if it's a worthwhile.
Committee.
I have okay. I'll let
Alderman
go ahead.
Nguyen.
Well, can you, I need more information. I can see how this would work. I've certainly been to antiques malls where that works, and yeah, I've been to Artem to see that as well. So I want to understand a little bit better, though, what the staff time would be that is involved in this. And, you know, before, when we looked at Maple's garage, that was a space that we had been unable to lease for years. So, and I have the same concern that Alderman Rainey has, which is, are we cannibalizing, or could we put something in a location that actually energizes some space? But how much staff time? And then that Maple Avenue garage space basically was free, I mean, because we were not renting it at all. So what have we got that's free right
And
now?
don't forget, it had no floor.
That's right, it had no floor.
It had
Right.
a
So,
rock floor. That's correct.
So what would this, I'm trying to understand what this would cost, like in terms of both staff time, and then we'd have to come up with a rental space.
Right. So there's two approaches to directly answer your question. I'm not comfortable myself, or our team doesn't have the capacity to run an incubator program, to lease it up, to do all that, right? And we don't really even have the funding anymore and at least from the economic development side, to lease a space. And I already told you spaces are expensive.
Right.
Now, if we have an incubator space, you divide that rent by however many tenants you have in the space, so it's cheaper for the tenant on the and then technically we'd get paid. But we know how we are when somebody's facing hardship.
Right.
We have a hard time holding them, right? So that's one approach that I'm going to say that I prefer as staff. I don't think we're qualified to do that. Now, if I'm able to work with 37 Oaks or some other organization that I don't know how many other organizations out there do this kind of work, and I also don't know how much it costs, right? We're having preliminary conversations. I want to learn more about it, but I don't want to do that if the committee is just not interested, because we, like you said, we have limited time and we have a lot of things going on in Evanston.
Let me tell you what I was reflecting on when I read the Oaks report. I was reflecting on when Peckish Pig came before the Economic Development Committee and the Review Committee about doing a food court. These are people who serve 200 people meals and continue to run a kitchen and a catering business all at the same time. They know so much about food. They wanted to run a food court, and the committee challenged them on their inability to keep it organized, and how complicated it would be to have different operators operating at the same time. Same thing, the same thing. Have different retailers operating. Collecting the rent probably would be the easiest thing. What are the hours? This one only wants to work 2 to 5. This one wants to work 8 to 10. This one, I mean, are we that for this kind of a retailer? And we know probably it's going to be retailers who don't want to work 9 to 5 or 4 to 10. And I mean, it's very complicated. It's very complicated. And quite honestly, I think it's the person who runs it or is the general manager is going to, I would think, would want to be highly paid, because it's going to be a nightmare, and there'll be, disagreements, et cetera, and there'll be commissions, and and I would certainly hate to see, I mean, I'm just imagining, is it going to be all new items? Is it going to, how is it going to be managed? I just think we shouldn't be in that business. It worries me. But this person, this organization, the business, the consultant seems very together. I don't think we are.
Yeah. You said that your staff, you have a lot of stuff going on, right?
Correct.
Right? So you really don't have the time for this.
I don't have the time to manage a retail incubator and put a program together. That would be a full-time job. So I would not like to do that but if I'm advised that that's a strategy that the committee wants to follow, we'll do that. And I don't think that is. But what I would say, Mr. Powell, is that I think it's worthwhile to at least explore what 37 Oaks has to offer. That's a 2-hour meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you want to meet with me, go ahead, but, you know, I agree with Ann. I just think it's just a lot, and we're not ready for this. And I'd rather see you and your staff use your time for something else. And if you got a recommendation, because I would ask you, I mean, do you think something like this could work?
But what about the Galleria? Didn't they come to Evanston? and
Sure.
open up?
Alderman Rainey is referring to a business that was in Andersonville that opened up a branch in Evanston. It was doing okay. I mean, the owner became ill and had to leave the business, and now Artem's open. And Artem is a co-working kind of artist space, right? They're focused on art, and that kind of also fits the antique mall model where you have people managing it. This is more about fashion and
Right.
home goods and things like that. So, but Mr. Paul,
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You and I got to get something straight.
Okay,
When I'm not
Hecky.
sitting up here and
Hecky.
we see each other, my name is Hecky.
All right, Hecky.
Right?
All right,
Okay,
Hecky.
let's keep it that way.
All right, Hecky.
Mr. Powell and all that, that's for
All right.
all the people. Okay?
All right, Hecky. So what I'm recommending is I would like the opportunity to spend a little more time pursuing the 37 Oaks process to learn a little bit more about how much it costs. I have to do it anyway because we're going to look at a program like a one-off or maybe a series of 5 classes for retailers throughout Evanston. But could it build into something bigger? Are there alternative funding sources that we don't necessarily have to use? Those are the things I need to learn. But the important question today is, and I certainly wasn't expecting that staff would be doing it, is that does the committee think it's something to pursue? It was a referral from Alderman Fleming. She asked us to take a look at
And
it.
you got me really confused. If this is something that you want to do and you got time, well, just go ahead. For me, it's like go ahead and do it. I don't, you know.
So my response is, I think you should have the meeting
Yeah.
and then come back and give us more information, because right now, I don't have enough information to make a good judgment
Okay.
on this.
I would jump in and suggest that beyond meeting with 37 Oaks, I would suggest that you talk to a few other people. Business districts comes to mind, and they're very familiar with Evanston, of course. And I think understanding from more than just one provider sort of what's more broadly happening in the retail space and how this might apply to Evanston would be worthwhile. So I would suggest you have a couple of conversations at least. And I'm wondering, I know you're talking about maybe not the maker space, but it occurs to me that there might be some synergies in having conversations with folks at Evanston Made or Evanston Made, is that the name of it?
Yeah, that's the organization, sure.
Because
they're-
to me, Evanston is rich in makers, right? And it's that whole maker space that, there's a lot that's happening in that space. And so I think it might be an interesting conversation to think about, is there overlap between, the maker spaces, how could that fit, with Evanston's community of makers and some sort of space that you're talking about, so.
Okay.
And I would like to know of where there is a retail co-op where we could go and look at something she's overseen.
Sure.
I mean, maybe there's one close by.
Yeah, I just missed the Navy Pier. It closed, but when I met her, it had just closed right after the holidays.
Why, was it a pop-up?
This one was a holiday pop-up. Yeah.
So another thing I've thought about, Paul, is I know that this originally came from Alderman Holmes, seeing people at farmers markets and
Yes.
things like that, right? Which I understand, and there are people who market all kinds of things at those types of episodic sales spaces, I guess.
Seasonal things.
Right. So, we have, this is just me talking off the top of my head. So we have the Winter Farmers Market, which is held on Saturdays. One thing to think about is we have all of these church spaces throughout the community. I mean, they're gorgeous and they're enormous.
And people do stuff without us.
Right. So something to think about this is that maybe it's a retail Saturday farmers market that is held in one of these amazing church spaces that we have. I did the Walk for Warmth and started off at United Methodist in their spectacular stage quasi-basketball space, and you look at that and you think, this doesn't get you, well, and not to say anything about United Methodist, but I imagine that large space doesn't get used very often. So we have a lot of these spaces that maybe that's a way to start it,
Okay.
just me talking off the top of my head.
Interesting, Peckish Pig just decided all by itself to have a Howard Street Christmas Bazaar sale. And they have an event space in the restaurant, and that's what they did. And people on Howard Street brought, like, the neon store, the people there made small neon things. They sold things for like $80 to $100 a piece. And, I mean, she sold baked goods and things, and the health department came over and, But, I mean, it was just really fascinating. People just came and bought everything. Yes, yes. No, yeah. Yep. And it was really something. All right, so I think the consensus is you will meet with her, and then you will talk to others that she's worked with, and then others that she hasn't, like Lisa, Evanston made, and maybe even you can bring her here and we can talk to her.
Sure, yeah, I think it'd be.
If you find her intriguing.
Okay, right. I'll vet her and we'll, over the next 60 days, figure out a plan. I'm here because there's a referral and I have to bring it. But doing what I do, Heike, I do think it would be a cool project. I'm just going to say that. Now, does cool mean it's going to make money or is it going to help people? I don't know. That's what we have to figure out, and that's what I want to talk to 37 Oaks about.
Could you find out?
Paul, the reason I'm saying some of this stuff to you is because it's easy for us to sit up here and tell you all these things you should look at, you should do, but you have to do it, and we're not doing it. And if you overload it with what you're doing already, I like to see you do a good job at what you do and not get overloaded too much. But if you feel you could do it,
I appreciate that.
it's fine.
Our staff is overloaded, we know that. If
Your
you
staff
could-
is overloaded?
I think so.
So why you putting more on them?
You brought this to us. Wait, yeah, but just wait.
Let's keep going now.
Excuse me. Could you find out from her so that we can do some work also, some research? If there is a community that she's worked with a problem like we have, of people not able to afford the rent and looking for co-workers to work with in the retail
Sure.
area?
I will do
think
that.
that would be interesting, if she could make a referral for us to take a look at.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So you've got direction.
I have my information.
Yes.
Thank you. And I had one question I want to ask earlier. You referred to a retail vacancy rate that you found alarming, and I want to.
I don't know if it's all retail, but it's
Okay, just a
vacancy.
vacancy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Sherman and Downstown. All right, so the Entrepreneurship Support Program and a progress report with the surveys, et cetera, very interesting. Can you comment on that? Oh,
Yeah, we'll invite
Okay.
Paulina.
Good evening. My name is Paulina Martinez, Assistant to the City Manager. Alderman Rue Simmons had asked do a follow-up with the applicants who had received funding through the Entrepreneurship Support Program. We actually had a pretty good response rate after stalking them via email to respond to the survey. So we had about 66% of the recipients replied to our survey. We've given out a total of 18 grants, so about 12 people replied. Most of the feedback was positive. A lot of the things that we saw was actually kind of goes hand in hand with what Paul was talking about. They want to see more support, more capacity building, workshops. So a lot of the things that we have tried to do and have done in the past, but we just don't have the capacity to keep doing at this point. So what staff has been talking about internally is, like Paul was saying, finding partnerships within the community to bring the resources to the community that they're asking for. But overall, I believe I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we've given a total of about $36,000 in entrepreneurship support program. And it has made a difference in the applicants' businesses.
Can you give us some idea, I thought it was very interesting, of what the food and beverage people, what their businesses are?
Yes. Are you talking about which businesses specifically?
Several said they were in the food and beverage.
Yes. So we're talking about Jennifer's Edibles.
Okay.
There was a woman who is a baker. And I believe she now has this. She works out of a shared kitchen, I believe, or her home. I can't remember specifically. And there's a third one that I can't remember who that is.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. I just was curious. I couldn't figure out what they did. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so everybody, all the people who responded are still working. They're still doing what they were doing when they received the grant, right?
Some of them, yes. Some of them have fully transitioned into doing this. There's a couple of them that fully transitioned into doing that. There's only one instance of an applicant who has still not launched the business, and I am following up with her and trying to make sure that she's responsible for the money and making sure that she's using it appropriately.
Any questions? Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
You were saying you needed more resources?
So some of the feedback that we received from the applicants, the last question was, what else could we be doing to make sure that you're fully supported? So the common theme of their responses was that they needed more resources, maybe bigger grant amounts and capacity building workshops to help them just take the next step into growing their business.
Is that something that you can do?
Like Paul said, we're at capacity. We're a small team, three of us. We don't have the expertise nor the bandwidth to do that right now, but we don't have the expertise or the bandwidth right now to take that on. So what we have been discussing internally is to find key partnerships in the community to help us with that. So one of them is the example of the partnership that we're going to have with Northern Credit Union to do financial education with the community.
Would these people be eligible for LEND support?
All of them are eligible for LEND support as long as they live in Evanston. And a lot of them have actually been working with LEND as their entrepreneurship training program.
Do you need extra staff to help you?
I will defer that to the manager.
We're not, we don't have the budget to hire more staff. So it's either,
If you did, I'm talking.
sure. So in a case like this, Paulina was referencing, we can work with, like, for example, I'm going to work with downtown Evanston. She's going to hire 4 people to run some, like, let me give you an example, like an Instagram. How do you do an effective Instagram campaign? Okay. There's a lot of people that don't know how to use Instagram. And Annie's focused on downtown. We can say, hey, we've got 3 entrepreneurship support grantees that could probably benefit from selling stuff on Instagram, right? So we steer them that way. Those are the kinds of things we can do. Or we have a little bit of funding from the Great Merchant Grant where we can help fund consultants who do the capacity building. You've been a mentor, to a lot of people. We can connect people that way. We're never in our group ever going to be teaching people or advising them on how to do business. We're going to connect them with people to do that. That's not our specialty. We spent a lot of time to get this meeting together tonight. You have to draft memos. It's transparency. You have to make sure that this stuff gets on the record. We don't have time for the other stuff. It's just not, and that's not what economic development agencies typically do anyway.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I was just wondering
Yep.
if you had another staff person, the things that you're talking about that you want to get done connecting and so forth, that takes people to do that.
I think we have the capacity to do that. Yeah, that's what we spend a lot of our time with. You'll see me at coffee shops and meeting people. It's what I do. Yeah.
They do a good job.
Because I was just going to say, majority of these people that you're working with, are they minorities?
Well, in the program that Paulina summarized tonight, yes.
Okay.
Right. That's the the entrepreneurship support program.
Because, entrepreneurship and making money, that's what these folks that we're talking about need. And, since Ann is on the reparation committee, maybe some of that money could go to that.
We're looking at that.
Okay.
We're still
Not social
developing.
service program, but how to make some money.
We're-
Okay.
We
I'm
appreciate
done.
your-
Thank you.
We appreciate your support on that. Anyway, so I thought that was a great report, and I'm glad we got a follow-up on a program that we're working on. Any, you want to talk about any of the staff report on economic development?
No, I don't have a presentation for that. I do have one communication I want to share.
Okay.
We're continuously trying to update our online presence, and again, Katie Bowden on the team updated the Evanston Edge website to have more. It's not real time, but it's very close to most current data. It's a data dashboard for unemployment rates, vacancy rates for office, retail, and so on. So you can take a look at it. If you're in an award meeting and people are screaming about vacancy rates and the like, you can use data to support your claims. We're doing okay, especially relative to the national scene and the regional market. I will say that there's a little bit of a blip in downtown Evanston right now. Gap did what they did, which is they're doing that all over the country, and they're probably they probably will fail at some point, but they're consolidating at Old Orchard. We're going to lose Mattress Firm. I don't think anybody cares about that. But we're going to try to backfill that space with we're actively pursuing, for example, there's a group called High Five. It's a kids activity zone that does, they're in Northbrook Mall, for example. That's a mall that's experiencing the same challenges that the rest of the world's facing. So get the activities in there. People need to eat, the things that you can't do online, we're trying to get into. And it's going to be a change. It's going to be hard for people to get, but we're not going to get departments. We have Target. And I remember some people complained that Target was opening in downtown, but that has stabilized Sherman. And it's generating a lot of sales tax.
And Target on Howard Street, it's doing a complete renovation.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Complete renovation.
And
Yep.
it's overdue. So
No,
no.
it's amazing.
So you can do it again, and
You can
so-
finally buy socks.
also,
No, but-
do you remember the wardrobe when it opened? There was a sock store that opened for about 30 days. I think we're going to have a lot of conversations this year about vacancies and what downtown Evanston's going to look like, and it has nothing to do with mid-rises opening. In fact, that actually helps create more people to shop, but it really has nothing to do with taxes. The retail world is changing; it's happening fast.
Yep, it is, for sure.
And if people, correct, We have an Amazon distribution center on Howard Street.
Oh, it
A
is
mile west.
amazing.
Yeah,
With
it's-
Amazon letters taller than the Trump letters. I mean, it's huge. The sign that they've just
Right.
put up on that,
You said on Howard?
on Howard Street, yeah.
It's in Skokie.
No,
It's in Skokie.
no, neither, Skokie,
Skokie.
In Skokie.
yeah.
Yeah, so until people stop shopping that way, that's what's going to continue to happen. And I'm not asking anybody to stop shopping online. It's a fact of life, but I really am going to spend a lot of time this year talking about the importance of figuring out a new plan, how to backfill the spaces in downtown. Evanston's going to be fine. We just have to adjust.
Yep.
And you know, I live here. I want it to be successful. We've gone through this before when Old Orchard opened in the 1950s. So we'll do it again.
Yep. I think it's doing great. And we have hotels. I mean, we have
Fine.
everything that anybody could possibly want. So,
That's all I have.
all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. The one thing that I would like to ask you, and I know the staff time is very short, very tight, but the report that we get needs updating. I mean, it's like 2 months behind almost.
Are you
The
referencing
report,
the information report, like the long
staff
list
report.
of?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really old.
Yeah. Sometimes you have really current information before we do.
No.
Is this some older
2
stuff?
months, yeah. And
Okay.
also the real estate transfer tax report.
Continues to be a struggle.
Who do I go to shake that loose?
Continues to be a struggle. I believe it comes out of the collector's office.
yeah.
And
When was the last time we saw one of those?
I'll run it by the city manager and figure out how we can.
I'll run it.
Okay.
You go downtown and get those buildings built. Okay,
I got a question.
right.
Good question.
Mr. Powell?
Yeah. Paul, you know, we over the years, we've given a lot of money to businesses in this community that were coming in the community, right? And we always ask them about employing Evanston people, young people, adults, and so forth. Do we do any type of, have we done any type of checking to see if this is happening? I mean, I know you guys don't have the time, I'm just,
No, but I will address that. We're going to have an additional kind of workforce resource team member that I think that would be an excellent, kind of like a compliance. Let's study it's a compliance report.
Yeah.
Have they delivered? I will tell you, for the most part, what we tend to do is we strongly encourage. We don't mandate, right? That's kind of been our philosophy. So they try their best. They hire some, but we don't have like a 5-year requirement, and we don't do clawback provisions, generally speaking. So, but we can take a look at that. We've got all of our loans documented and all of our assistants, and we can track back the ones that and that's a good project for our staffer that's going to be focused on workforce.
that'd be great.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for
Motion
bringing,
to
good
adjourn.
suggestion.
Thank you, everybody.